In the evening, I spent a long time trying to find a comfortable spot for myself. One moment I would sit at the desk, then move to the windowsill, then return to the bed again. My thoughts were scattered like small items around the room. I wanted to turn on music, but no composition fit my mood. I felt pressure, not physical, but mental, as if the room were too small for my state of mind. Finally, I just turned off the light and stood in the darkness for a few minutes, allowing my eyes to adjust. When the darkness became soft, slightly transparent, I suddenly noticed a strange feeling. The room looked a little longer, as if the bed stood farther from the wall than I remembered. A meter? Half a meter? I turned on the lamp. Everything was normal. Imagined it, I decided. I lay in bed, rolled onto my back, and felt that familiar moment when the body sinks into the mattress. Sleep covered me quickly, but in the last second, it seemed as if the far wall had moved away slightly. Just a little. I didn't have time to check it. I woke up in paralysis. I opened my eyes. I saw darkness, but it wasn't just the absence of light. It was a substance. Thick, cold, like wet sand pressing on my eyeballs. And I immediately realized that something was wrong. The room was longer. It wasn't imagined. It had genuinely stretched. The wall opposite the bed was somewhere far away, so far that it couldn't be seen in the darkness. Just a black corridor space that was swallowing the nightlight's glow and, it seemed, swallowing sound. My body was leaden, but every nerve in it was burning with awareness. The silence stood motionless, but there was a feeling that it was breathing. The pressure was building. From that new, long part of the room came the sensation of a strong and slow gaze. A sound drifted from the darkness. Low, wet like the grinding of wet stone against glass. I am here. The voice was so distant that it seemed like a fluctuation of pressure in my temples, not a sound. I was waiting. From the wall that wasn't there came a dry sound, like the cracking of old wood. It was a K-char-r, K-char-r, K-char, the scraping of walls rubbing against each other, building a new, false geometry. I saw the strip of light from my night light begin to stretch across the floor. It became thinner, weaker, try to reach the new wall that was receding. Your night light, it's so small. The voice was slightly closer. Do you think it can measure me? You sleep incorrectly. You prevent me from growing. Your space has ended. The space began to pulse. The walls seemed to breathe, but not on a horizontal plane. The ceiling above the far end of the room lowered, squeezing the air. I felt the atmospheric pressure increase, as if I were slowly submerging underwater. I'm squeezing the air so you become closer. The whisper was now on the edge of audibility. So there is nothing between us but the silence I grant. I try to inhale deeper. My body wouldn't allow it. I was suffocating. You breathe too quickly. It's noise. His tone was instructional, almost paternal. I will make your breath quiet. I will make your rhythm mine. In the far end, where the light ended and the absolute blackness began, a displacement appeared. Not a shape, but the absence of shape. As if the black corridor simply stood up and started sliding toward me. This edge, it belongs to me. I pull it toward you. This is my gaze, my new length. The dark substance was approaching, and I felt it absorbing the heat from my body. It was crawling onto the blanket, onto the bed. Your thoughts, they are so loud. It is noise, it is chaos. For the first time, the voice sounded close, right over my ear, though nothing physical was visible. I will make them quiet. In my space, silence is absolute. I felt cold on my leg, then on my chest. It wasn't a touch. It was the crossing of a boundary. The entity had entered my territory. Do not fight. It is a waste of warmth. You will be perfect, aligned. My little exhibit. The strip of light from the night light became a thread. It stretched perhaps 15 meters, but only a few centimeters remained before the wall. The room had almost finished its growth. I was about to be locked inside. Here, just one piece. One small piece of your now. I am taking it. The voice was triumphant, and the pressure on my chest became unbearable. I felt my consciousness beginning to blur, and the nightlight's glow fading. And when the darkness touched the edge of my pillow, the paralysis suddenly vanished. I lunged upward, gasping for air, and fell onto the pillow. The room was normal. For walls, a ceiling, a bed. The night light was where it always was. The room was normal. I turned on the overhead light. Everything was fine, but I looked at the floor along the far wall. There, where the boundary of the long room should have been, a thin, perfectly straight black line remained. It looked as if it had been drawn with charcoal pressed into the wood. I approached. It was not dirt nor damage. It was a boundary, and precisely where the line ended, a barely visible inscription was scratched with a sharp, inhuman nail. Tomorrow I will try to take you completely. I will add another meter. Your warmth is worth it. The evening was strangely calm. I came home earlier than usual, and for the first time in many days, the apartment didn't feel confined. I made myself tea, put the mug on the table, and just sat for a while listening to the clock tick in the hallway. The ticking was even correct, as if time had finally stopped rushing and started obeying. There were no calls, no messages, nothing that demanded my attention. The room felt enclosed, safe, like a box tightly closed with a lid. When I approached the window to close the curtains, a small silhouette flashed in the glass reflection behind me. Low, child-sized. I turned around abruptly. No one, just a chair and a folded sweater on it. Fatigue, I said aloud, just to keep the sound of my voice from letting the silence deepen. I went to bed earlier than planned. It was warm under the blanket, almost heavy, as if it wasn't just covering but pressing me into the mattress. Thoughts lost clarity, spreading out. Just before finally falling asleep, I heard furniture being moved in the neighboring apartment, slowly, carefully, with pauses, as if someone wasn't sure exactly where to place it. Sleep came abruptly. I didn't wake up. I was stuck. At first, it looked like strange immobility, as if my body simply decided to rest deeper than usual. I tried to move my fingers, not with motion, but with intention. The intention arose. The movement did not. Then the pressure appeared. On my chest, on my neck, on my eyelids, as if someone was slowly placing their weight on me, layer by layer. My eyes opened on their own. The air in the room became thick, viscous. Every inhale broke off halfway, as if my lungs were allowed to take only the minimum. I tried to swallow. My throat didn't budge. I knew it was sleep paralysis. That knowledge didn't help. It only meant that my body was no longer my ally. And one more thing I knew immediately. I was not alone. It wasn't a feeling of fear. Rather, certainty. Like walking into a room and knowing someone is already there, even if you can't see them. My gaze slowly, without asking permission, crept toward the foot of the bed. A child was standing there, not in shadow, in the light from the window, so close that I could make out the frayed edges of the fabric on its shirt, the thin, dry cracks on its heels. Short, about 6 years old, standing perfectly straight. It wasn't breathing. At least I saw no movement. I looked at its head, and something sharply squeezed inside me, as if an organ had been clenched by hands. There was no face, not darkness, not emptiness, but an absence covered by a smooth, slightly shiny surface, as if someone had stretched skin over nothing, without bothering with details. The child tilted its head. Slowly, exploratively. "You are watching," came a quiet sound. The voice didn't echo in the room. It arose somewhere behind my eyes, in my skull, but with an alien intonation. "Why are you watching if you can't leave?" I want to close my eyes. My eyelids twitched and froze. I was allowed to see, and not allowed to close. It took a step. Thump. The sound was muffled, childlike, and yet unnaturally distinct. The second step. Thump. Each sound resonated in my chest, as if I, not the floor, was bearing its weight. "All of you," it continued, leaning slightly closer, "lie like this." Its hand lifted. The fingers were short, childlike, but moved too precisely. Without hesitation, without fear, it touched my leg. I felt nothing. No cold, no warmth, only the realization. Contact was made. "This is not yours anymore," it whispered. The hand moved higher, to my knee, to my thigh. "You don't use this." The voice became closer, denser. "When you sleep," it leaned closer still. "So, it can be taken." I heard my own heart. It was beating slowly, heavily, as if afraid to draw attention. The child leaned toward my face. The smooth surface, instead of features, hovered a few centimeters away from me. And then it began to change. First, a small indentation. Then a second one. Two deep pits. Not eyes, but pressure marks from the inside, as if something was pushing against the skin, trying to find a way out. "Do you see me?" came the sound from beneath the surface. The indentations slowly crept down. The surface stretched, forming something resembling a mouth, too wide, too dark. "I have been watching for a long time," the mouth said. "You have a nice—" Its fingers touched my cheek. This time I felt cold, deep, the kind that passes through skin, through bone, and beyond. "Face," it whispered. "You don't see it when you sleep." The surface of its face twitched, as if trying to replicate the shape of mine. "Will you share?" At that moment, my body seemed to tear from the inside. The paralysis vanished abruptly, painfully. I lunged forward, air slammed into my lungs, the blanket slipped off, and I nearly fell out of bed. The room was empty. The light from the window, ordinary. The clock in the hallway was ticking, just as before. But on my cheek, where it had touched me, a perfectly round, cold imprint remained, as if someone had held a finger there for a long time, measuring. It didn't disappear long after I turned on the light. And that wasn't the worst part. It was the thought that it hadn't taken anything. It had only marked. In the evening, I decided to eat something light before bed. I made myself toast, spread honey on it, and put on a random YouTube video, something for background just to keep from thinking. The apartment was quiet, domestic, with no hints of distress. While chewing, I felt my teeth strangely clench several times. Not pain, rather tension, as if my jaw didn't want to open completely. I blamed it on the cold drink. In the bathroom, while brushing my teeth, I heard a barely noticeable sound behind me. KHRRR. RRK? So quiet it could have been anything, the plastic brush, pipes, my own breath. I didn't turn around. I turned off the light, walked into the bedroom, and lay down. The blanket was warm, the pillow a little too large. Fatigue quickly took over. Just before falling asleep, a sound drifted from the distant hallway. KRRR, KRRR, as if someone was very carefully grinding their teeth. I thought of neighbors, of old walls, of tiredness, and I plunged into sleep. I didn't wake up, I got stuck. At first, it seemed like I was just lying too straight, too neatly, as if my body decided not to move so as not to ruin something fragile. I tried to change the position of my shoulder. The intention was there, but the movement didn't happen. I tried to inhale deeper. Air came in and stopped. My chest didn't expand, as if there was no space inside. My eyes opened on their own. The darkness in the room was thick, almost oily. It didn't just hide objects, it smoothed them, erasing the edges. The air became heavier and slowly pressed on my jaws, my temples, my teeth. And then I heard it. Skreek, skry. This time the sound was too clear to be imagination. Teeth rubbing against each other. But not human. It was a grinding sound, dry, harsh, methodical, as if bone was rubbing against bone, as if someone had been persistently wearing themselves down for a long time. The sound would weaken, then intensify, as if someone was testing different pressures. I wanted to clench my teeth. I wanted to unclench them. I wanted to at least swallow. My jaw wouldn't obey. I slowly shifted my gaze to the side, in jerks as the paralyzed body allowed. And I saw him. The figure was sitting right on the floor next to my bed, hunched over, incorrectly folded. Long arms lay on its knees, but the fingers were tense, as if ready to press into the floor at any moment. Its head twitched from side to side, shudderingly, abruptly, as if held on a broken hinge. And the jaw, it was moving too fast. The teeth were grinding so much that I felt the sound in my own teeth. The vibration passed through my jaw, through my temples, settling somewhere behind my eyes. SCRRK, SCRR. The figure suddenly froze, then slowly raised its head. The eyes did not glow. They were empty, a white void without depth, as if eyes should have been there, but they had been scraped out. It was looking directly at me. The grinding did not stop. It became rhythmic. As if tuning in, the entity began to move. Not with steps, it crawled. In jerks, brokenly. Its arms worked separately from its body, pulling it forward. With every movement, the grinding became louder, closer, more personal. It seemed to me that the sound was no longer in the room. It was inside my head. The entity stopped at the edge of the bed. It raised its head. Its mouth opened wider than human anatomy allows. The jaws separated with a dry crack, exposing the teeth, uneven, cracked, worn down, but incredibly sharp. It was clear it had been doing this for a long time, and often. The grinding changed. Now it was directed at me, as if someone was trying to play something with their teeth. A rhythm, a sequence, not a sound, an instruction. The entity slowly leaned toward my face. I felt the cold pressure of air from every jaw spasm. The sound was so close that I heard nothing else, not even my own heart. And then it whispered. The voice did not come from its mouth. It originated between its teeth, from the sound of bone on bone. I hear how your teeth fear. The words broke, as if passing through a jagged grate. They are tense, do not know how to grind correctly. The entity stretched out a hand, long, thin, cold. Its fingers settled on my jaw. I felt pressure, not pain, control. It was palpating the muscles, the joints, the tension points, as if studying how I held my mouth. Allow, he whispered. I will teach. The grinding intensified, slowly, deeper to the crunch. Its teeth approached so closely that I was certain they were about to touch mine. Do you hear? He whispered. This is language. This is memory. The jaws twitched once more, and at that moment, something inside me broke. The paralysis vanished abruptly, painfully, as if a lock had been torn off. I lunged forward, sharply inhaling air. My jaws snapped shut so hard that I felt pain. My heart was pounding, my hands trembling. The entity was gone. The grinding was gone, too. Silence. I turned on the night light. On the edge of the bed where it had been sitting, a thin streak ran, as if someone had run a sharp tooth across the fabric. The streak was perfectly straight, exactly at the height of its jaw. I sat there for a few minutes, afraid to move. And then I noticed one more thing. When I unconsciously clenched my teeth, in the silence of the apartment, a faint sound was heard. KRR, and this time it was mine. In the evening, I was washing the floor in my room. Not because it was dirty. Rather, the day was the kind you want to erase the very fact of your presence in. The water was warm, almost hot, the rag heavy with moisture. I moved slowly along the walls, lifting the thin gray stripe of dust near the baseboards. The movements were monotonous, soothing, and with each pass, my thoughts diminished. When I reached the corner, the rag suddenly stopped gliding. Not abruptly, but resistance appeared, as if something rough, dry, was beneath it. I pulled harder and felt a short scrape. Not a sound, but a feeling in my hand. I leaned down. The baseboard looked normal, white, slightly yellowed with age. But between it and the floor was a thin, dark gap, slightly wider than in the rest of the room. Cold emanated from it, not a draft. The cold stood motionless, as in a closed cellar. I ran my finger along it. Nothing happened. Old apartment, I thought. I finished cleaning, washed my hands, turned off the light, and lay down in bed. My body quickly grew heavy, my muscles relaxing. I lay on my side, facing the wall, and listened as the day slowly disappeared in the silence. Just before falling asleep, a sound came from below. CRR, CRR, as if a fingernail was very slowly scraping wood. I didn't open my eyes. Sleep covered me smoothly, without a jolt. I did not wake up. I stopped. At first, I thought I was simply lying still. It happens sometimes. The body hasn't fully woken up yet. I tried to inhale deeper to switch on, but the breath came out short, cut off, as if someone allowed only a minimum of air. My eyes opened on their own. The world looked strangely flat. Objects lost volume, as if someone had erased the shadows. I saw the bed, the wall, the floor, but I didn't feel the distance between them. I tried to move my hand. The signal went and didn't return. The paralysis did not cover me. It enclosed me. I tried to blink. My eyelids closed only halfway. The feeling was as if they were being held, not by force, but by condition. I was allowed to watch. My gaze was fixed on the baseboard. Light from the street fell low, gliding across the floor, and I saw that the gap had widened. It hadn't cracked. It opened like a mouth that had been kept shut for a long time. Time began to break. My heart beat with strange pauses during which nothing happened, but I was still here. I realized I wouldn't be able to pass out. My consciousness was held in clarity, almost artificial. I felt knowledge, not fear, expectation. From the darkness beneath the baseboard, something thin slowly extended. A finger, pale, almost transparent, with an overly long nail. It wasn't reaching for me. It slid across the floor, leaving a faint trail, as if someone had wiped a damp cloth across the dust. A second one, a third one. Fingers appeared with pauses, as if each movement required a decision. They stopped, froze. I felt tension rising in my chest, not panic, but readiness for something inevitable. You walk above US. The voice didn't come from below. It appeared between me and the floor, like a vibration. I tried to inhale deeper and felt the air push against my chest, not reaching the end. The fingers began to move along the wall, not towards me. This was worse than if they had reached out immediately. I understood. They were measuring. We have been here long below. One finger sharply lifted and touched the leg of my bed. The bed didn't move, but I felt that it ceased to be a support, as if it had simply been placed there temporarily. I tried to scream. My chest heaved. There was no sound. My voice wasn't taken. It simply wasn't connected to my mouth. A form began to emerge from the gap. Not a body, a contour. Flat, dark, composed of crevices and shadow. I saw the edge of a face, a pressed-in cheek, motionless lips that knew how to move but didn't want to yet. Don't look. We haven't come out yet. I couldn't look away. My eyelids trembled but did not close. I felt my body slowly growing cold, as if the warmth was being drawn not from outside, but from within. One finger reached for the blanket. The nail snagged the fabric. The sensation hit not my skin, but inside my chest, a brief electric pulse. I understood a little more, and something would cross a boundary I couldn't see but knew with my entire body. And then my body returned. I inhaled sharply. The air rushed in painfully, as if for the first time. My shoulders jerked, and I rolled back, almost falling out of bed. My heart beat unevenly, with long pauses that didn't disappear for a few more seconds. The room was ordinary. The baseboard, intact. The light, normal. But in the morning, when I washed the floor again, I saw several small scratches along the baseboard, at the exact height where something had first tried to come out that night. And I realized it hadn't disappeared. It had simply gone back down.